Welcome to another installment of Information in the Public Interest. I'm JoAnn Van Tassel, your moderator, and joining me today is our Fire Chief, Bob Smith, and Training Coordinator, John Pender. And we want to talk today about the role of the fire department, our firefighting personnel, in their role as first responders. We heard a lot about first responders back in 2001 when 9/11 happened, when those jet planes stupidly flew into the World Trade Center towers. And Bob, I think that had special significance for you, to the point that you have a memento from that date. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I contacted the Port Authority. I found out that they were offering pieces of artifact from the World Trade Center to governmental agencies, first responders, and so forth. And so we contacted them, sent them a letter asking, said that we would be proud to have a piece. And a little over 2 years later, we received an I-beam from one of the towers. A lot of people have asked which tower and that. They didn't indicate, but it is one of the towers. We keep it on display at the fire administration offices, and we do have it portable so we can take it to the schools, we take it to the memorial and stuff like that. But it's very, very, it's a very moving piece of I-beam. I have seen people come up, touch it, just pray, think, weep. It's really something to see. So,
the township hasn't had a tragedy of that magnitude affect this community, but we do have a need for first responders to respond almost on a daily basis here. Is that true?
Oh
Mr.
yes,
Pender?
we run several calls a day. From anything from a stub toe to car accidents to structure fires, you name it, we go to it.
And if somebody has an emergency that's a real emergency, they call 911.
correct.
Yes.
And I think a lot of your responses are what have been labeled medical emergency. What type of things do these medical emergencies generally involve?
Well, generally we'll have, if someone slips and falls, somebody has trouble breathing, chest pains, sometimes unresponsive people, or my husband's just not acting right, you know, can you come take a look at him? You name it, we'll go to it. And we'll go and we assess them. We have an ambulance that comes with us, and if they need to be transported to the hospital, then we'll have them transported down to the hospital.
Okay, I would assume that some of these are as a result of a heart attack or a stroke. What are the warning signs a person should look for if they suspect a heart attack?
Well, a heart attack, you know, chest pain, numbness in their left side, unresponsive, not acting normal, anything along those lines. Sometimes they'll start with a dull pain in their chest that'll just progressively get worse and worse. A lot of people describe it as an elephant sitting on their chest. Things like that is definitely time to call 911 for us.
And I have heard that the symptoms are different for men and for women.
Well, they can be, but you know, there's no hard and fast rule. You know, some people you'll go to won't have any signs or symptoms, just not feel right. They'll go into the hospital and find out that they've had a heart attack. You know, some people, you hear about the left arm all the time. Some people that never affects them. So it's just generally, if you're just not feeling right, you need to call. You know your own body better than anybody else does.
And I've heard it said that a stroke, in effect, is a brain attack as opposed to a heart attack. What are the symptoms somebody should look for if they suspect a stroke?
A stroke, you'll generally slurred speech. They'll have trouble if you ask them to pick up their arms. One arm will go up, but the other arm won't. Facial drooping, one side of their facial kind of droop. You'll ask them to smile, and they'll have half a smile. are very good indicators that someone's had a stroke.
And if someone suspects a stroke, calling and getting a response immediately
Is crucial. Yeah,
Yes.
the faster you can get them to the hospital, the better. So the second you think that there's a problem, a lot of times what people think is, oh, they'll get better. Drink some water is
Yeah.
a favorite one. Take an aspirin, and then they'll wait and they'll wait, and then it'll be too late by the
Yeah.
time they call us.
A lot of times, somebody that's having a stroke is not necessarily, they'll realize it as well as the family member and stuff like that. And the family member will notice, like John said, the drooping, or the eye will be real droopy, or their slurred speech, and they'll ask them if they're okay, and they'll even indicate, well, what do you mean? I'm okay, I'm fine, you know, and stuff like that. So that's when the loved one needs to really perk up and get us coming, because
and that's a real 911 call.
yes.
Yes.
You know, I know it's hard to judge a 911 call for medicals and stuff like that, but we look at it as, you felt it was an emergency, you called 911, we're going to treat it like it's an emergency. We're not going to blow you off because it was, you know, it ended up just being a small cut when you were a bleeder and you were bleeding all over the place and stuff like that. We're going to treat you no different than we treat the heart attack victim or something like that, because our thought process is, you thought it was emergency at the time, you called us, we're gonna come help you. So
Okay. You mentioned that you respond to auto accidents also. What do you typically find in those kinds of situations?
Generally, we'll have a lot of neck pain, back pain, where they've hit their head on the steering wheel sometimes, especially if they don't wear their seatbelt. Injuries from the seatbelt on occasion is generally what we found. We don't have an I-75 where we have a lot of crashes like that. So most of our car accidents are minor, but we do have some bad ones. And there we just treat what we find. If you have a neck or back pain, we need to stabilize you. We put you in head blocks and put you on a board, because we don't have an x-ray machine on our truck, so take you down to the hospital and get the x-rays. We sometimes go a little overcautious on those because we can't see, and then go down to the hospital and you get cleared and checked out. But most people, I haven't seen very many that haven't been wearing their seatbelts in a long time. So
no, and you've got the airbags and everything, and you know, some of us older guys that have been doing this for more years than we like to remember, why we've come up on some, what we thought was some pretty spectacular crashes, and people are out walking around because of all the safety features and everything. Where back when I first started this back in the early 70s, anything was very traumatic, and a lot of times people didn't make it. So hats off to the audio industry and what they've done for us and everything like that. So
Okay, what type of training does one of our fire department people have to have in order to be qualified to respond to a medical emergency, whether it's an accident or a fall or a suspected heart attack?
Well, for a medical license, they need to go, we have a 6-month basic EMT school. They go 3 times a week for 6 months straight, where they get all their basic EMT training. They take a nationally registered test, and then they become state licensed with the state. That's just part of the training, and then you have to go to fire school also, which is another 6 months with the same amount of training before you can start to respond to calls with us. Because we can't have you out on a medical and then a fire goes in, and well, you can't go to that. So all of our people are dual trained in fire and medical.
And then that's the basic EMT?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Now, don't we have some that are advanced?
We do have some paramedics in our department,
Okay.
and that's a much longer schooling, a lot of clinical hours, and they can start IVs and give certain medications and things like that.
just put out there though that the paramedics we have are paramedics at other departments. They don't, we don't practice paramedic procedures here. They are men and women who belong to another department, and that's what's great about Orion Township is, in our fire department, is we have the dedication, number one, of these people, like John said, put a year of schooling in before they ever start. It's the exact same training that if they went to Detroit and become full-time firefighters down there, it's the exact same training. But you know, so we don't lack in the training aspect of it. But the other thing is that the people that we have that do this full-time someplace else, but yet they come back to their own community and they still give to their community and everything. So this is a real plus to Orion Township and the men and women that are on our fire department and what they do for us.
So those that serve are, I think, your paid on call personnel, and so they respond in emergency situations.
Yes.
But as I understand, I think the department has some full-time people who are there. Can you tell me a little bit more about your staffing and who's available to respond when you get the call, say at 10 o'clock in the morning or at 2 in the afternoon?
Okay, right now we have 5 full-time people. There's one at each of the stations during the day. So 2 reasons. One, we get the truck on the road right away, no matter what the situation is. But then also for those people that during the day walk in that from I don't feel good to I've got a chest or I got a pain in my side, we have a lot of people walk in and end up with kidney stones and stuff. It's really something there. Or if there's just somebody who needs some information on fire protection or whatever, these guys are there for that. They also, 3 of them are certified state inspectors. They go out and check the buildings, the commercial buildings, and make sure that all the safety procedures are in place and that. John is one of the full-timers. His job is strictly to make sure that all these people are trained, that they continually train. They have to be go through training once a month. And then I have one other gentleman who's my fire prevention guy, and he's the one that goes and sets up the school tours and meet with the teachers and the kids. And he's very busy with our fire prevention coming up in October and stuff like that. So he's real busy doing all that. All these guys during the day, they've all got a project going all the time.
You talked about your fire inspectors and inspecting your commercial and your business facilities. What do they go in and look for?
Basically, they go in and look for the 5 main things, and that is that the doors are not blocked, that the exits are all marked clearly, that the exit lights are working, the emergency lights are working. You know, people don't realize because they see the emergency lights on the wall, but they're never lit. They don't realize that when everything else goes off, they come on. They make sure that all of the aisleways, if it's a mercantile store like a Michael's or something, that aisles are wide enough so somebody can get down them. That if you're in the back of the store and something happens, you can see where it is. They also make sure that that there's no electrical outloads or overloads and stuff like that. And they just generally make sure that when you, as a citizen, as a customer, goes into that facility, that you can feel relatively safe that if something does happen, you'll be able to get out.
Okay. Have you gone on these fire inspection calls?
I do go on them once in a while with the chief. I'll go out and help him out. But my job is mostly to deal with the training. It's nonstop training here. We have training once a week, every month, rain or shine, snow, it doesn't matter.
What kind of training are you doing?
Well, this month we're doing driver's training because all these gentlemen have to drive these trucks. So we make them go out and practice driving. We have a whole course that we make them drive through. But we'll do anything from search and rescue, where we'll put fake smoke in buildings and have them crawl around and search for victims. We put them on roofs to ventilate buildings, cut holes in them. To hazmat, if we had a hazmat incident, what we would do.
Hazmat, what's hazmat?
Hazardous materials spill. If a toxic chemical was to leak, how to stop it. Anything that we can that I can think of to put them into a position to get some practice is what we'll do. And we do it every week. So.
Do you have practice medical emergency runs too, or not?
Well, we do that on occasion.
Yeah.
At once a month, we have medical training, which is totally separate from fire training that we do, where we have that. Sometimes we'll incorporate some medical emergencies into our fire training, but we run so many medical calls too that we get a lot of real-time practice also. So.
A lot of the books and magazines you read, professional magazines talking about firefighters and training, is that we spend so much time taking blood pressures, but yet that's something we do every day. But then when we do come to a hazardous material situation, so that's why it may sound like we're not doing a lot of training in medical, where we keep our skills sharp. Plus, it's a different licensure. They have to be relicensed every 3 years for medical. So.
Okay.
And I did want to correct John on one thing. He did say gentlemen. I have a couple of young ladies on the department too, and women are welcome at all times.
Okay, if somebody wanted to sign on as a paid on-call person with your fire department, how would they go about it?
What they do is they can either go to any of the stations or to the administration office and pick up an application, and they fill out an application, and then we call them and do an interview just like any other job. And during the interview we find out a little bit about them, and what we really do too is we explain to them the amount of time that this takes. And if they're still willing to do it, we do a background check and a driving check and things like that. If they pass all that stuff and they're still ready to do it, then we put them through school, and we put them through EMT school, we put them through fire school at no cost to them. We pay for everything, and as soon as you get done with school, then we bring you on the department. It seems much faster than it is.
Yeah.
It's quite a process, but that's basically the gist of it.
Okay. And you talked about going to the fire halls, and we talked about where the fire halls are in the village by Children's Park, on Silver Bell, just east of 24, over on Gregory and downtown Gingerville.
Right.
And up on Baldwin, just south of the roundabout. But where's the administration office?
The administration offices, believe it or not, just moved back to the township offices at 2525 Joslin this summer. When I started my career with Orion Township, and a young lady was our supervisor, JoAnn Van Tassel, we were in those offices, and we did move out because of the crowding of the offices and that. And we moved to a fire station, and since then, there was an office space opened up, a rather large one. I know a lot of people thought, why, but I did it for the public, really, because there's so many times that they go to 2525 Joslin to the township, and they ended up sending them over to the station, and so I just felt that it was, trying to do right by the public and not have them running around and everything. So.
Okay. Anything else that we should cover regarding what our fire personnel, both men and women, are providing to the community on a regular basis?
It's really, I think we've really covered everything. They're paid on call, like we've indicated a few times. In the middle of a Christmas morning opening of presents of their own kids, they have to get up and respond to emergency calls, whether it be a medical, whether it be a heart attack. This is the commitment they give. They do that. They're giving of their time during Fire Prevention Week, during these school tours and stuff like that. They do standby at the football games, the high school football games on Friday night. It's just a very, I want to say, unique bunch of people, and I don't want people to think that they're one-eyed or cyclops or anything. But what I mean is, they're your neighbors. They're the people that live next door to you. They just have one little extra thing about them, and they want to help protect their community, and they do just a phenomenal job of doing that. So.
And how many people do we have on the department at this time?
Right now we have about 55 people. It broke down. There's probably, I think, 19 at one of the stations, but then it's pretty even after that, the other 3. We wouldn't mind seeing another 5 to 6, 7 people, but again, as hard as John works every year at training people, getting them up, bring them on, the money we spend on them and everything, it usually, we lose about 3 or 4 out of every 7 to 10 people we bring on, we'll end up losing 3 or 4 because after it's all over and done with, the glory of finding out you can't put your lights and siren on your car right away, and that it's a little bit more work. They end up moving on to different things. So.
And is this the type of position that you need support of the family also?
Oh, absolutely.
110%. 110%. And we even tried to do the interviews in the home with the family and stuff like that. And one little funny story, we had a young guy that was just ready to go. He wanted to be on the fire department in the worst way. I mean, the guy was down to the fire station bugging us every day and that. He got on. We finally, brought him on, got his equipment and everything, and everybody carries a little pager on their side that at the most unopportune times it goes off. That night, the first night he was on, about 2 o'clock in the morning, it went off in his bedroom. His wife and him had a baby that had been colicky for most of her young life, and this was one of those rare nights that she was sleeping, and the pager went off and woke the baby up, and his wife did tell him, put the pager away, and you will not do this again. So I mean, it's funny, but the young man really wanted to do this, but it's not for everybody. It's the family, you have to have a complete backing of the family. So
yes, you do.
Even our wives who've been putting up with us for 30 years sometimes scratch their head and say, "You're not leaving me today."
Well, it does take someone who is dedicated to serving the community to come on board and say, "I want to be a firefighter. I want to help protect lives. I want to help save lives." And I think it's a tribute to this community that we have 55 people who have said, pick me, and have taken the necessary training, who are there continually training. So I think it's a real tribute to you, Bob, as chief, to you, Officer Pender, for the work you put in as training coordinator, keeping these people interested and up to date on what they need to know.
Well, I'd just like to say one thing, JoAnn. It is a great honor to be able to be their chief, because number one, without them, I would be nothing. But number two, they are a great bunch of people, and Orion Township is just, they're blessed in this township to have these people, because the alternative to that would be a good 5 to 6 mills of taxes to support a full-time department, and so people, we're still a bedroom community here, as you know, and we don't need those big taxes right now. So it's a great honor to have these people.
And the Township Fire Department right now is supported by 1 mill.
It's 1 mill. That's basically the way to say it, but with the Headley rollback, we're really at 0.98. So sometimes it's a challenge. But
and with this community growing the way that it is, and you read in the paper, we've got over 700 new residential units coming in, and we've got new businesses coming in. Can this 1 mill rolled back continue to support that increase in population?
I'm going to have to be honest with you and probably say no, that sometime we're going to have to probably look for a little bit more. I don't want to go more than 1 mill. I'm going to say probably half. What the public has to understand is, yes, we're hearing about 747 homes, but our auditors have told us, and anybody that deals in the government into this, yourself as well versed, knows that it's going to take 2 to 3 years for that tax base to catch up to us and everything. In the meantime, I can't not look at keeping trucks going and equipment up to date and stuff like that. So
And you can't go buy a fire truck at your local car dealer.
No, they
Right.
quit doing that a few years
Yeah.
ago. No, and there's a agency out there. It's called the National Fire Protection Association, or a lot of people here, NFPA. They mandate a lot of stringent rules on this equipment. So again, it's not you go down to your local dealership and pick something out. It's a very time-consuming and very expensive venture.
Yeah.
So.
Well, again, I want to thank Chief Bob Smith and Officer John Pender for joining us today on this installment of Information in the Public Interest. And I hope the folks who have been watching this have been informed. If they've got any questions, then they can visit any one of the fire stations or the Township Hall and talk to the chief himself. But just know that in an emergency, that fire department personnel are there, they are well trained, and they respond quickly. So again, thank you, Chief Smith. Thank you, Officer Pender.
Again,
And-
our pleasure to be here with you. So.
Okay. And again, thank you for watching Information in the Public Interest.